Okay. All right. We're gonna restart. All right. So this is going on YouTube. That is the plan. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are doing a Genshin tier list, this is exclusively how good I feel these characters are, and we're ignoring them being at like high constellations, especially for 5 stars. Some constellations will be discussed if they matter for the character in like large, significant ways. So we're just gonna go in alphabetical order, which is what these are already organized into anyway. So yeah, basically that. Also, characters are gonna get bonus points if they do more than one role. So characters that are like healing, but also that's gonna be better for them to be more versatile and to fit into more teams and be able to work with other characters better. And elements are also going to matter, of course, as well. And this is only within the context of the characters that we have right now. As more characters get added, that may make other characters better. They could add a character that makes Lisa S tier tomorrow. So this is only for 1.1. So starting with Amber, we're gonna fucking put her directly where she belongs in D tier. Amber is one of the free-to-play characters, and her E is terrible, and her Q is almost good. I know Amber can technically be built around, but it is so outlandishly expensive and not worth it to do so that she's basically just for running around the world and doing the fire torch puzzles. Like, you can make her work, but you probably should not make her work. Barbara. So Barbara is also a very accessible character that the devs keep giving away, and it's likely that you have a few constellations on her just from them giving away a bunch of Barbaras. And also, I think Barbara is really, really good at healing, but she probably only makes it into B tier. It's pretty rough for Barbara in that there are just characters that can fill a healing role and also do one other thing or sometimes multiple other things. She's extremely good at healing, and her being water helps a lot because she can be a part of freeze teams, but that can also come as a negative because she puts water on you, which can get you frozen. But her ability to also take down fire shields and fill that role is really, really nice as well. So she's got a lot of good stuff going for her, but she just needs like one extra thing to do. It's a ton of healing, and then she's being kind of bolstered by her just being water elemental. On top of that, we are coming up next, I suppose, actually, we have Baidu. So Baidu, I feel like, is an A tier. Baidu is a very, very solid character that can carry and also support DPS by just flashing her in for counter hits. I don't think she makes it into the S tier category because I think as a solo carry, she's not that great. But as a fully built out, kind of expensive support character, she does an absolute shit ton of damage. I do think that she would be better off not being Electro, so that also harms her a little bit, because on one-tap counters, I feel like Electro is like a little bit underpowered for that. If she was Pyro or something, she'd be able to hit like giant melt counter hits and stuff. But as a burst support, that is Electro, and with her really good Q to buff characters like Bennett or any other like fast auto attackers and such, she can do a lot of damage with that as well. And just provide safety for a lot of teams, especially in certain particular fights, like the Wolf fight, which she's very, very good at, and pretty much anywhere where you're going to be able to land solid counter hits, or in Pyro teams where you can light grass on fire and then use that to auto get perfect counter hits and do big swings of damage in a pretty respectably large area. Moving on, we have Bennett. Bennett is an S tier. Honestly, he might be the single best character in the entire game. Bennett does actually everything. There's not a single thing that Bennett doesn't do outside of generating shields, and that doesn't matter because his healing is absolutely outrageously high. He can DPS, he can support, he can heal, he runs the whole gambit. He's Pyro, he can help you get your Pyro resonance for that extra attack in a squad that's using another Pyro as a carry. He has the best buff in the entire game. He's very, very debatably the single best character in the entire game, and he's a 4-star to boot. It is worth noting, very minorly on Bennett, that there are 2 specific things to mention with his constellations that matter a ton. First and foremost, his constellation 1 is really, really good, and it makes him hyper consistent, which is a nice thing to have. And 2 is do not get his C6. If you are gonna like get constellations for a bunch of characters, if you're whaling, do not unlock Bennett C6, as it heavily reduces the amount of parties he can be put in, and his versatility is overall just reduced drastically. So don't get him to C6, which is kind of a benefit for those of us that are not trying to get like whale constellations. But he's absolutely outlandishly good. One of the best characters in the game, especially when combined with Chongyun. So Chongyun, it's kind of hard for me on where to place him. I've settled on A tier for Chongyun, and it's for a couple of different reasons. So Chongyun has a couple of problems with certain characters that you'd think that he'd be paired with well normally, and that is that he doesn't work well with the electro characters. He doesn't work well with Ching. He doesn't work well with Razer. He doesn't work well with physical DPSs in general, like Zhonling. There are certain characters that he's just got problems with, so I would put him at like a low A rank because his versatility is a little low. That being said, he is a very solid primary DPS in like cryo damage, which is valuable, and he has some versatility with being used well with characters that you can just flash in and use their E, such as, of course, Bennett. He's extremely, extremely powerful with Bennett. That being said, like, being able to be a primary DPS and support in situations like with Dilip, he is a solid support and doing plenty of damage on his own with his very, very cheap ult, being able to build Noblesse. Like, those types of builds, I think, put him into a low A tier, which I think is solid for Chongyun. I think he will also get better, especially as a primary DPS, whenever we get some of the upcoming cryo sets that we currently don't have access to. So there's that. Also, we have Dilip coming up next. This is very unsurprising. I will say that he is a character I don't have. He is one of the 3 characters that I currently do not have, but just mathematically and based on seeing him be used with everyone else, I think it's very, very obvious that Dilip should go into S tier. He's an incredibly strong pyro carry. I would personally rate him lower than Bennett because he's only a hyper carry. Now, being a Claymore hyper carry is really, really good. He's in the best element. Everything is great for Dilip. But just Bennett's overall versatility and ability to be put on literally any team, I think puts him just barely above Dilip. Even though Dilip's DPS output is higher, Bennett just has an overall larger variety of things that he can do, which is really nice. That being said, Dilip's super strong. His ult is amazing. It's hyper spammable. You get into a point where he's constantly got his like pyro conversion because he's spamming his ult off cooldown every single time. Very, very good character. If you have him, excellent. Next, we have Diona. So Diona is a character that is relatively new, and I'm going to put her actually above both Baidu and Chongyun in the A category. Diona has a lot going for her. Diona is a great character on multiple teams. She's excellent on any physical team because she can both fill an ice and healer slot on physical teams for the purpose of proccing Superconduct. So on teams that are using like Razer, she is absolutely excellent because she can give you 2 slots at once of what Razer needs, which is both ice and a healing slot. And her shield is extremely powerful, super hard to break. Like it's like having, spoilers, a much better Zongli that also heals without needing $2,000 worth of constellations, and is also in a better element. Plus, on top of that, she has the versatility of having a bow, which is really useful and fills yet another slot in a team, which is for hitting weak points, which, while it doesn't come up a lot, I think we're going to be getting more ruin enemies in the future, so I'm going to factor it in just a little bit here. So yeah, Diona, absolutely excellent. She can also be built in a way for some minor DPS, which I don't feel like is super worth it, but if you're going to invest heavily into Diona as kind of a like supporting DPS / healer / support, she'll be fine for that, it seems like, just based on the numbers. And I will say that the Diona that I have used, which is only level 40, has overperformed in just every single conceivable case. Like, there has been 0 times where I felt like Diona has not done what she needs to do whenever I put her into a party, and she's very, very good. Next, we have Fischl. Fischl is going to slot in just above Diona. Fischl is an excellent support that can also be a primary DPS. She's also one of the characters that is kind of free. She was in an event that was, you know, a very well worth it event that everyone should have done if you were around for it. So She's really, really accessible, as she was also on the first banner, so I suspect a lot of people have Fischl. I will say, for Fischl, there are two things that really matter here. Her Constellation 1, super nice if you're going to be using her as a primary DPS. And her Constellation 6, if you have her Constellation 6, I would put her at low S tier, because it just makes her so much more powerful as both a support and a primary DPS that I would put her in like a very low S tier if you have that Constellation 6 for her. Without that, though, she's still really solid. She's an amazing Electro support. She's got Oz on lock all the time. Her Q is another cast of her E, so she's got basically 100% uptime, and I think that's really solid. Like, 100% uptime on that ability that you just want to be turreting and just, like, Electroing every enemy that's available and doing very solid damage. It's good stuff. So, next up, we have Jean. Jean, I'm going to put at low A tier. Jean is a very solid character that like has uses as a healer, and I will say she's good in co-op, but in general I don't like putting her in parties. She feels like she is just, because she's Animo and doesn't have a real great way to be built for VV, because she does have that short cooldown on her E, but it's not a large enough AoE for it. It's a little bit rough. So you basically need to build her as a full DPS in order to get decent healing out of her, or build her as ult spam, and her ult is fine and does a cleanse, but like it just doesn't get her into an S tier type of range. Like it's good. She's a solid character that can do a few different things, and I do really like her in some comps, but like she just feels like she's low A. I would not probably build a party around Jean before I would build a party around Chongyun. Moving on, we have Kaia. So Kaia, I'm going to put at B rank, but above Barbara. So Kaia is one of the free-to-play characters, and he has way more uses than you would probably expect in teams. He is able to be used in physical parties because he is ice, and he can be built for physical damage as well, and kind of be a physical carry if you're going like full free to play and you just need a lead for a second team. He can do those things, and that's nice. His ult is a little underwhelming, and his DPS is obviously not going to be super great going for that, but he can do solid stuff. He can be a good ice character to throw on a couple different teams, and in a lot of cases he doesn't need to be leveled to do what you need him to do, which is a bonus for him being able to just be thrown at teams and be pretty effective. Next, we have Kaching. So Kaching, I'm going to put her below Dilip, but I actually think they're like very, very, very close. Kaching is an excellent character, and I am going to put her below Bennett as well, kind of for the same reasons that I put Dilip below Bennett. She's an incredible carry, absolutely fantastic. Her damage is absolutely ridiculously insane. It is very, very hard to beat. Her ult is very good. Her E is great. Her E is also, bonus, great for exploration, which I'm not super considering here. But Kaching is just super powerful. There's tons of great parties to build around her. She can be built as an Electro DPS or as a physical DPS because she can just do so many things. So she's a pretty versatile character in terms of how you're able to build her, and she's got a lot of different teams that you can put her in that she's going to really appreciate. So she's got a lot of different ways where she can be effective, mostly on the back of her just being so strong by herself. And that's just really excellent for her. Next, we have Kalee. So Kalee, I'm going to put it out there. Kalee is my favorite character, and she is the primary DPS that I use. I am going to put Kalee kind of alongside. I'm going to put her in the middle of Kaching and Dilip. So I would say Kalee is slightly better than Kaching, mostly on the back of her being pyro. If these elements were reversed, I would put Kalee definitely below these two. But I think Kalee is on par with Dilip damage in most cases. But the reason for that is that Kalee has a really high skill cap in terms of using her. She has a lot of animation cancels and stuff that can bring her above Dilip, but I just don't think that that's reasonable to consider in a lot of cases, because the absolute optimal frame perfect damage output of Kalee, it's really, really good. She's an excellent character. She can do jaw-dropping amounts of damage. She's got her charge attack passive. Her ult is really solid, but has a downside in that you have to have her out on the field while her ult is going on to get the entire thing out of it. Dilip is just a much easier character to use, so he's gonna like just barely slightly edge out Kalee, even though Kalee has a higher damage ceiling, I feel. So that's where this comes out. These characters are all absolutely excellent. They're amazing. Best characters in the game. That's why they're an S rank. But like, I think the usage between Dilip and Kalee is pretty like at odds, where Kalee is much harder to use and Dilip is much easier to use. And I'm gonna value the ease of use on Dilip a little bit more than the overall higher damage potential on Kalee. So next up we have Lisa. Lisa I'm gonna put into C rank. Lisa is one of the other characters that you start out with, and she's absolutely okay if you need to use her. Like, if you have to use Lisa, she seems fine. If you've got a bunch of constellations on her, if you're really unlucky, then that's probably a reason to use her, I guess. But in general, you're going to want to use basically any other Catalyst user. Unless you really have nothing else that can do like some of the fights that you're going to want to do, like Oceanid maybe, if you're trying to level up Child, if you have no other Electro characters or no Pyro characters somehow, then you could use her for that, but I probably wouldn't bother. It's going to be probably a waste for you to level her if you kind of have anything else that can do those jobs, but she is available for those things. I just think her moveset is pretty clunky. Not as clunky as Amber's moveset, but pretty clunky overall. Next, we have Mona. So, Mona, I am going to put right below Diona. Actually, no, sorry. Right above Diona in terms of A rank. So, Mona is one of the characters that I don't have. I don't have her, so I don't have a ton of experience with Mona other than secondhand experience with Mona. So, I want to clarify that immediately. However, Mona has an incredibly powerful damage buff that is super, super solid as a burst support on a party for increasing damage. There are combinations where you can get extremely large damage numbers in terms of, like, you know, hitting for 100,000 damage with Bennett, with Dilip, with Kalee, all the fire characters combining for Vaporize and doing stuff like that. You can do really, really large amounts of damage with her, and that's great. But, like, those big bursts, I think they're a little clunky to set up. Obviously not having done it myself, but just from watching people do it, it seems a little clunky to set up. And while she does seem very good, and she is water, which helps out a lot because there's not a ton of water characters to choose from, she's got like good stuff, but not like amazing stuff. I would probably choose Fischl over her, but like, it's more of a how easy is this to do for the payoff that you get in terms of Mona being an A rank. Why is Kalee S tier? Because Kalee is an amazing character that is an S tier. Why would she not be? Anyway, moving on. Mona is a character that I will very much say that I am less informed on than other characters, but I still think she's very good just from what I've seen. Just a little bit clunky. Mona also has Taunt. Yeah, I don't value Taunt very much. Moving on, we have Ninh Huang. So, Ninh Huang, I am going to put just above Diona. So, Ninh Huang, from everything that I've seen, is an incredibly powerful burst character. She's great. I like her a lot. One of my favorite characters in the whole game, but she's Geo. If she was any other element, she'd be absolutely broken S tier. Being in Geo gives her some defensive capabilities, which is really nice, but I just feel like she's like slightly below, obviously, our S tiers, and she doesn't provide support. She is a like main carry, really. So I would put her here. I think that's pretty solid for her. She's one of like the really nice DPSs to have around, and being Geo, she's dragon damage. She works on everything except for the Geo cube. So I'm going to put her pretty high on here because she is a solid carry to choose from. So yeah, seems great. Moving on, we have Noelle. So Noelle is a weird one because she's got some catches to her in terms of how good I think she is. So I'm going to put Noelle at the top of B, but there are some caveats for this. I'm putting her at the top of B because there's two really major things here that really change where Noelle goes on this list. At a base level, Noelle's healing, I don't feel like is consistent enough to have her be in A to go alongside her damage. She really wants her C1. With her C1, I would put her at the bottom of A. With her C6, I would put her at the top of A. Like, it matters a lot for Noelle. Her C6 allows her to do an absolutely insane amount of damage because her conversion on her defense and everything is so amazing. And her healing is really going to be very important to just, like, you know, being able to support parties and stuff. She can't really be run as a support slot unless you have that C1 for that consistent ability to heal. So yeah, I think Noelle belongs here whenever we're talking about Constellation 0. The moment she has Constellation 1, I think she goes to the bottom of A, though. So, moving on, we have Chi Chi. So, Chi Chi is a character that I have, but I've not messed around with a lot. Mostly, I have watched other people use Chi Chi. I'm going to put Chi Chi in basically the same spot that I have Baidu and Chongyun. I'm going to put her slightly above Baidu. Now, the reason I'm putting her here is because I actually legitimately feel like Diona is a better version of Chi Chi. Like, straight up. The healing from Chi Chi, really good. Being an ice support, really nice. I actually feel like Diona does both of those things better, and Diona provides shields, and she has a bow, which is more versatility for your team. I just don't think Chi Chi is trying to be a main DPS, and having a sword doesn't help her with not being a main DPS. Like, she's a great healer. She can provide tons of healing, but just not as much versatility as Diona. I think Diona is a better character that is just going to be able to fill in more for your party, but they're pretty similar. Like, they're both ice characters that can fill a very similar role. I just feel like Diona does it better. Moving on, we have Razer. So, Razer, I'm going to put at the very top of A rank. He is a really, really good physical DPS. He is an absolutely excellent physical DPS. Him being Electro and having him, like, he's a physical DPS that is Electro, which means that he is half of the Superconduct combo. So taking Razer and combining him with Diona, with Chi Chi, like, that stuff works really well. Even combining him with Kaia, that forms a really good core for a team that can do a lot. You can go on top of that and, like, add Barbara. Like, there's just so many characters that Razer can work with notable exception of Chongyun. Like, you can use him with so many characters. He just has a lot of characters he works so well with. The only character he just really doesn't want to be around is other mainstay carries, because he is a main carry for a party, and Chongyun. Pretty much everyone else, you can make it work, which I think is really vital and important, because that versatility really pays off for him in being able to just build out into a physical party, especially as a secondary party whenever you have your primary party set up, and then you're just going to kind of ragtag some characters together for a party 2. Moving on, we have Sucrose. So Sucrose is kind of a hard one because I feel like she's just above Jean, but Sucrose is one of those characters that I have mostly seen other people use. And for that, I have seen her be quite good. So, like, she can do a ton with grouping enemies, mostly for ground-based teams like for Razer, and doing elemental reactions with, like, a huge elemental mastery build. And her teams are really cheap to put together because you don't need to level her that much. You mostly just need to stack a shitload of elemental mastery, and she kind of just does it all on her own. And she has team buffing. I will say that if you have C1 and C2 for Sucrose, I think that she moves up significantly and probably moves into around the Mona and Ninh Huang range. But really, really solid. I think she is a very solid character for just being able to be essentially budget venti, which we will get to in a moment. Next up, we have Child. So, Child is a character that, straight up, I will say I don't like, but I would put him at the bottom of S tier. So, he has, objectively, a lot of damage, and there are parties that he can be built into to do a lot of damage. He's really good, and I hate him. He's basically, for those of you that have seen my Warframe content, I feel the same way about Child that I felt about Loki back whenever he was a relevant character. I hate him completely, but he does do an absolute ton of damage. So there's that. His kit, I feel, is really clunky, but there's enough ways to use it, usually in a very expensive party, that can make him do very, very well and do an absolute ton of damage. So I don't like it, but I think he's at the bottom of S tier personally. Moving on, we have the Traveler. So the Traveler is... I've seen a number of different ways the Traveler has been used so far, and I think going forward in the future, the Traveler is going to be really good. But I would probably put the Traveler at the top of B rank, because I think that the builds for the Traveler right now are a little kitschy. The builds that I've seen work well for the Traveler are basically just using the Traveler as a Geo DPS if you are either totally free to play and not rolling at all, or if you are using him as a support in an Animo party. I think that works fine. I think Geo is a bit better, and you can do a good deal of damage that way. Like you can get the Geo Traveler to the point where you are like chunking enemies for like 4k on auto attacks and stuff, and you're doing like 10 to 15k on his E's and stuff, or his or her E's, and that's fine. But I think both builds and both elements right now are kind of underwhelming. I think in the future, we are going to have like one element or maybe even two elements that are really, really outstanding, or maybe hyper specific for certain parties that are going to be really good. But as it stands now, I would say high B rank for the Traveler. It's just a little bit like the numbers are just slightly low. And then for Venti, we're just going to put Venti above Child in S rank. This character is fucking busted. Absolutely busted. Venti is great. Venti does so much. He does extremely, extremely good grouping, both in Abyss and high-level domains. He has access to the VV set, so he also gets the reduction on enemies. He does a shitload of damage. Like, Venti's great. Absolutely excellent. The one thing about Venti is that I'm going to value primary DPSs that are good elements over Venti's ability to support a group. He can do tons of stuff. He's got lots of ability to be put into parties, but sometimes there's just not room, and there's content that he's just not good for. Like, using him on Dvalin's pretty whatever, using him on the Wolf, pretty whatever, using him on, like, the Child fight, pretty whatever, and large enemies, he's pretty whatever against. He's a little bit narrow in terms of certain enemies showing up that he just can't interact with. So he's great at, like, most of the things that you're going to be doing, but, like, because it's not everything, which I feel like all of these characters fill into, I'm going to put him here. Like, I feel like all four of these characters fit into put them in anywhere in any content pretty much, and they're great. And I feel like Venti is just a little bit more restricted, but still absolutely excellent. Moving on, we have Zhonling. So Zhonling is able to do a lot of different things. I would probably put Zhonling right above Ninh Huang. Zhonling is a pyro, which helps a lot, and she can also be built as a physical DPS, and everyone's going to get her from doing Abyss naturally, so everyone's going to have access to this character. So she's really good. She has a lot going for her. Her as a pyro support is excellent. Guoba is a great character, or not a great character, a great ability, and she's just solid. She can be used a bunch of different ways, which helps her out a lot. And just being pyro, being able to be a pyro support so you can get that pyro resonance in like a Dilip party or a Kalee party if you don't have Bennett, that stuff's also absolutely great. Moving on, we have Ching Chi. So, Ching Chi, interestingly, another character I don't like that much. However, this character goes into the top of A rank. And the reason this character goes into the top of A rank is because they are too specific in what they require. I think Ching Chi has some restrictions that are a little specific. Like, Ching Chi's really, really good, like, directly below S tier. But I think that this character kind of needs a sacrificial sword or some pretty specific stuff to get them going. That's not how his name's pronounced. Whatever. This character. Like, his ult is on a huge energy cost, and his E is on a gigantic cooldown. So if you have, like, a sacrificial sword, you can do busted shit. I think he's legitimately above Venti if you have a sacrificial sword or a really good way to enable him. But without a good way to enable him, he's just really, really fucking good, which is still excellent. But, like, having sacrificial sword or any great enabler immediately puts him into S rank. Moving on, we have Zhinyan. So Zhinyan is new. Both of these last characters are new, both Zhinyan and Zongli. So obviously I'm not going to have a ton of experience with either one. I have both of these characters now. Zhinyan seems like she's kind of only great for adding into parties that need a cleanse in Abyss or kind of in physical parties. I'm going to tentatively put her just above Noelle because she seems fine. She's pyro, which helps a lot. Like, she's a pyro physical support, so that can help you get to resonance if you're using, like, her and Bennett inside of a, like, Razer party where you're also using, like, Kaia. Like, that's, like there's some comps that can come up, like using her with Xianling to get that pyro, and then, like, she's got stuff that she can do. But I think her E and her Q are both pretty clunky. So it's a little bit rough, I think. With Constellations, she can do some pretty crazy shit. But I don't think it's nearly as crazy as a lot of other characters get whenever they have their Constellations. So I think she is, like, high B. I think her Constellations are a little bit less important for her than Noelle, though, which I will say. But yeah, like, she's a solid character. Like, she seems like she's going to be useful for different areas, especially because of the cleanse that she can provide. But still very good. And then we have Zongli. So, Zongli, obviously the new and controversial character for the game at large. I think that Zongli is probably right above Zhinyan. Probably right above Zhinyan. I think based on just, like, the numbers and math that I've seen from other people and using him a little bit myself, I would probably put him below Geo Traveler just from what I have seen in their output, just in general. Like, he's fine, and, like, he can petrify enemies, and his Q does fine damage, but his E doesn't do as much as it feels like it should be doing on its tap. And its hold is a nice, strong shield, but the need for a nice, strong shield just kind of isn't there right now. If we get to a point where having strong shields becomes very, very important, he will suddenly be way better. Who knew? But right now, like, having strong shields isn't really there, and most people are just trying to get big DPS and worry about more survivability later, and what he provides is more survivability and more crowd control type aspects. I will say that, like, if you have Zongli, it's not going to be, like, a bad time. There are definitely, like, reasons to put him together where, like, you're having him support a Ninh Huang party to generate more energy and, like, bounce ults back and forth. Like, that's definitely a valid thing that you can do. But I don't think his numbers are quite high enough. And I realize that he is about as good a DPS as Xianling, but I think Xianling does way more, and also she gets a huge benefit from just being pyro. I will say, out and out, much like Ninh Huang, Zongli suffers from being Geo. If you made Ninh Huang or Zongli pyro, suddenly Ninh Huang's in S tier, and I think Zongli would be at high A if their elements were literally just different. And that's kind of the cost of being a Geo character, is that you're useful against everything because you do damage to everything, but not having the reactions hurts. Also, I will say that Zongli does have worse shields, as some people are pointing out in chat, than Diona. Diona literally has better shields, and she's ice, and she's a bow character, and she heals. Like I said before, Diona is basically a C6 Zongli, but with C0. So there's that, which is pretty rough for Zongli, considering Diona's a 4-star. But yeah, you guys will notice that this list here is pretty heavily weighted towards S and A. And the reason for that is because I feel like overall, there's not that much difference between how useful a lot of the characters are. There are some standouts that are pretty obviously less good than the majority of the cast, but I feel like these characters can all be combined and used in a lot of interesting ways, and they're all like totally fine to build around. If you want to take Barbara and make her a DPS, absolutely possible for you to do. Technically, if you want to take Amber and build her DPS, absolutely possible for you to do. But I think there is an ease of use and also just general effectiveness, especially at lower costs, that are going to put characters at these higher ranks. And like I said, some of these characters are going to be based on if they have certain things, it can change their rank drastically. Like Sucrose moves up if she has higher constellations, like her first one and her second one are very good. Like I said, Ching Chi, or however you say this character's name, would be an S tier if you add just like a sacrificial sword if you happen to have one of those. There's a lot of ways that these characters can move around, especially if you've got the perfect weapon for one of the characters. Obviously, that's going to matter. But yeah, overall, I think the character balance in Genshin, at least so far, looking forward to the next banner, has been pretty good, with the obvious kind of community concern about Zongli maybe not being as strong as a lot of the other 5-star characters that we've had so far. Because obviously, looking at this list, if we just want to talk about the 5 stars, there are 3 5 stars, or there are 5 stars in S tier, and then the rest of them are in A tier, except for Zongli. Unless we're counting the Geo Traveler, which personally I wouldn't, because they're just a character that everyone has. If any, like, we're just going to count like the rolled 4 5 stars, which is, you know, that's why people are talking about the discrepancy with Zongli's output. Animo Traveler, I would put Animo Traveler just at like a slightly lower B, but overall I think Traveler's at the top of B whenever we're talking about Geo and some of the versatility with Animo if you want to build him or her that way as well. So yeah, looking forward to new characters coming out. This is the tier list for the current characters in Genshin. Obviously, like I said, I have not used all of the characters. I don't have Dilip, I don't have Mona, and I don't have Child. But everyone else I have. Not everyone I have used extensively, but I have seen all of the characters extensively and seen a lot of them used in their different party comps and stuff, as I pay attention to that stuff, as it turns out. So yeah, now we're going to do the waifu tier list.